Welcome to another episode of Punching Up with Sean Conroy. I am Sean Conroy, and I am punching up, and I'm very fortunate today to have a guest on the show who is somebody that I have worked with for a long time. Let me give you just a few of his credits because there's too many to get into. It would be the entire show. You may recognize him from the HBO comedy series Eastbound and Down, where he played Terrence Cutler. He was in Silicon Valley. He was in Veep, Modern Family, Blackish, Reno 911, Comedy Bang Bang, and a bunch of animated stuff like Rick and Morty, Solar Opposites, Bob's Burgers, Adventure Time, Harley Quinn.
No wonder I'm so tired.
Andy Daly is here.
I deserve a rest. Too much work.
I love Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn is very funny.
It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
James Adomian is Bane. Almost every line makes me laugh.
Yeah. And it's also so funny to hear all these people that I know on the show, to hear like their character voices coming out. I really get a kick out of that. You and I just did Ass Cat together 2 nights ago.
Wow.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that was our 999th live performance together. I think.
Oh my God.
I
have to go back because I also keep track.
Yeah, it's in my show journal, and
I haven't updated my spreadsheet.
Oh, you do it on a spreadsheet?
Oh yeah, I do it. Well, now I do. Yeah.
So did you transfer the information from your early journal into your spreadsheet, or do you keep them separately?
No, well,
we've done this since the 90s, so there's some.
Every improviser does that. You have to know exactly how many, and then a few notes about the scenes that you did in there, so that I can recall to you. If you give me a date, I can tell you some of the fun scenes that we did that night, of course. But it used to be a paper ledger, a hardbound ledger, and now it's a spreadsheet.
It was a ledger, not just a journal.
It was a ledger. It
was like a Bob Cratchit kind of thing.
Very, very much so, yes.
Quill pen and, So, Andy, I have so many different things I want to ask you about, but I kind of want to start right in the middle of everything. Because one of the things that I love to talk about on this show is sitcom pilots and writing pilots. So can we talk a little bit about Forrest MacNeil?
Absolutely.
And the pilot for that show, and then that show. And I'm a huge television fan, obviously. And there are certain shows I think of, and there's not a lot of them, as kind of perfect shows. And I feel like that show is one of those shows where from the moment it started till the moment it ended, it just was exactly right every time. So
I'm so glad to hear it. Yeah, it was. I'm proud.
I wouldn't say that unless I were talking to you, but I will say that to you.
Of course, I have a hard time watching it and seeing flaws, but the flaws I see are not really in the writing. I think I'm proud of the writing, and yeah, I'm proud of a lot. I'm troubled by technical aspects, but we'll leave that for another time.
Lighting and so forth,
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, I know how much effort we went through to figure out the background during the in-studio wraparounds.
Oh God.
It was a nightmare, and to me, in the first season, it looks ridiculous. I can't believe anybody can watch the show and focus on anything other than how horrible the background looks.
That's so funny because I literally just watched the pilot this morning, and I think it does such a good job of. It's just such a good job of establishing the world that we're going to be in, because right away you're in this show and it just gives you the premise. So here's my question. How did that whole thing come about? How did you start developing that,
Yeah, well, so it's a convoluted story. I'm hoping that's
we're all about convoluted stories on this show.
Okay, good. You'd like to embrace the chaos of the development process. Okay. And I don't know how much chaos to bring you, but
By the way, I will say that I feel like every show has that kind of background. Like There's I saw somebody, oh, who was it? It was the woman who has the I Love LA show, whatever that
Oh
show
yeah,
is.
Rachel Sennott.
Yeah, and she's like, I
Mhm.
just walked in and I was myself and I said I want to do a show about LA and they were like, "Sure." So just be confident. And I'm like, "Fuck you." And I don't mean that, Rachel, if you want to come on the show, please do. But you
Sure,
know
that'd
what
be
I
great.
mean? Like, no, come on. So tell us the story.
So oh boy, I had been working for Comedy Central a fair amount. I did Crossballs there. I did Reno 911 there. They reran Mad TV, which seems to have built enthusiasm at Comedy Central for me that I was on that. Um, and the David Spade show as a correspondent, and Lewis Black's Root of All Evil. I had done all this stuff at Comedy Central, so they obviously liked me. And then I get this DVD on my doorstep from my agent with no explanation, and I put it in, and it's the pilot episode of the Australian series Review with Miles Barlow, and a clip reel of other episodes of that. And I watched it, and I didn't know why they had sent it to me, but I could immediately see, like, yeah, I could be that guy. I could do
Hmm.
that if that's what we're talking about.
With you
Uh,
were working on your Australian accent at that time.
yeah, of course. I was like, it's an easy one, mate. I can do that. I don't know, not really. Um, but then I got a call either from Charlie Siskel or from my agents or whatever saying that somehow Comedy Central and Charlie Siskel, a producer who I had worked with on Crossballs, were in
And
some
and
kind of,
and you had worked with him on another pilot that I worked with you guys on, right? Wasn't
oh,
that
what was that?
wasn't that the one it was you went the thing I remember is I got a
Oh,
t-shirt from a lawnmower race.
oh, that I don't think Charlie was involved with that.
Oh, he
He was
wasn't.
not.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a different thing. That was for TBS. That was a different
Okay.
pilot. Um, so the two of them, those two parties were in some sort of discussion about adapting this show for Comedy Central and talking about me as the guy to do it. And I
Hmm.
said, great. And then they made me some kind of offer that was really bad. Like it was just financially, it was like, here's $2 to be held to this for a year or something like that. And I
They
said,
made you an offer you could refuse.
exactly. So
Hmm.
so I said, no, never mind. And it was like right before pilot season or something too. So that year I did the pilot of the Paul Reiser show for NBC. And at the time that I did it, I said, this has no chance of being on television. It's just a paycheck for this period of time. But then it did get picked up as a mid-season replacement. And so anyway, fully a year after their initial deal to me that I said no to, Kent Alterman had taken over at Comedy Central. And Kent Alterman is a guy we've known for years. He was a producer of
UCB.
the UCB show.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not just a Comedy Central like producer of the UCB show, but a real comedy fan who used to come out and see shows all the time
Hmm.
and really made it his business to know who was doing funny things in New York.
Somebody who should be involved with Comedy Central, not somebody who happened to be involved with Comedy Central.
Exactly, exactly. And I don't know when he relocated to LA, but he was in LA and doing the same thing, coming out and seeing show. You'd see him at the UCB Theater in LA all the time. So now he's in charge. They made him the president of Comedy Central, which was kind of surprising because he hadn't even worked there for a while. But one of his first orders of business was Andy Daly. Everybody at Comedy Central loves you. Let's figure out a show for you. And I said, well, I was made this terrible offer to do this thing, but it seems like it would be a fun thing to do. And he said, oh, okay, well, let's just make you a better offer to do that. So
Great.
there you go. So that was 1 year of the development process,
Okay.
kind of wasted on that. And then Charlie and I got to work on the script, but there was a lot of confusion about what our roles were going to be. So things kind of got a little bit ugly there, but in a kind of a, I want to put this into the larger context of of sometimes in Hollywood, you have to have the clear conversation with somebody as opposed to the kind of unspoken, I think we're on the same page
We trust
conversation.
each other. We know we're, yeah, dude. what a fucking nightmare. Like I am so bad at that stuff.
I'm terrible at it. That's one of the major things I learned through this process.
And what happens is you don't have that conversation, and then all of a sudden it becomes really important, and everybody's like, "Fuck, what is going on right now?"
Exactly, because the conversation was not had when it needed to be had. So my assumption going into this experience was that even though Charlie and I were supposedly splitting the fee to write the pilot, that he was actually, because I didn't know that he had written, I didn't know him as a writer. I knew him as a, from
Producer.
Crossballs,
Yeah.
yeah, as like a non-writing producer is what they
Right.
call it. So I was like, well, that's really going to be his role, and I'm really going to write the script. So
Mhm.
the day that our deal was done, I happened to be on an airplane, and I wrote like half the pilot, and I sent it to him, and he was like, whoa, 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 whoa. We need to start from an outline, and we need to, and I have all these thoughts about how it's good. So at that was the point, or even before that, really, ideally before that, there would have been a clear conversation about how
Yeah.
we're doing this. So the process
I'm
of
going to
writing
write
it.
the whole thing on planes, just so you know.
hmm So the writing process was difficult, but we ended up with a script that I think maybe they had agreed to produce before we ever wrote it. I'm not sure if that was part of the sweetening of the deal that
Hmm.
happened, or if they decided based on the script to shoot it. Um, and then at that point, I knew Jeffrey Blitz, um, whose brother is Andy Blitz, and Andy Blitz and I have been friends since the 10th grade. We went to high school together and collaborated on comedy together in high school. And
Ridgewood, New
his
Jersey, correct?
Ridgewood, yeah, that's right, Ridgewood High School. His older brother Jeff is a director and a writer who at that time had won an Emmy for directing The Office, the American Office, and he had made a feature film. And of course, he was most famous for directing the documentary Spellbound,
Right.
which was an Oscar-nominated documentary about spelling bees.
Which he had already done by then as well.
Yes, exactly.
Hmm.
So I immediately thought of him as somebody to direct this. He seemed like the perfect choice to direct it because it was going to be mockumentary style and all this stuff. But he said no.
Wow.
And then so we had to interview a bunch of other people, but then finally he came back and he said, actually, let's meet and let's talk about it. And it turns out that he really, I don't know when I learned this, but he really didn't like many aspects of the script.
Ah.
Um, but nonetheless, he shot the pilot and he did such an amazing job of shooting the pilot. And one of the things about Jeffrey Blitz is he doesn't just take a script and shoot it the way that most television directors do.
Hmm.
He really like talks about why is this happening? Why does the scene end this way? Why does this? And so he prompts a rewriting process through the shooting of the pilot, and it can be a little stressful.
Right, right.
But,
What do you mean, why? It ends there because that's the end of the page.
right. Almost every director in television just blocks the scene.
Yeah, I
And,
remember. It's crazy.
yeah, they don't even really give actors direction because it's like I'm just a visiting guy here, and
Hmm.
my job is to make the writer happy.
Very
But Jeff,
mercenary. Yeah.
yeah, Jeff does not do it that way. So we shot a pilot that was really good, and they picked it up to series. Uh, but I said, like, I can't really go on in this process the way the pilot went, where I have this very difficult, um, creative co-equal partnership with Charlie. Uh, like I can't do that, but I think I could do that with Jeff Blitz. So that began just ugly showbiz
Yeah.
of like
But
oh,
good for you for sussing that out and acting on it, you know?
it was the thing where I sometimes in life, like you say something pretty extreme that's like an ultimatum or whatever, and you really shouldn't do it unless you mean it. Um, but I did say to Kent, I said, if the series has to be made the way the pilot was made, I really don't want to do it, so please don't pick it up. But if we can change the way it's made, I would like to do it.
Wow.
And that was sincere, you know.
And that's
I
a
wouldn't.
lot. I mean, that's a huge thing to say because he could easily, Ken could go, okay, see you later, Andy. You
Yeah,
know?
for sure. But I the only way I could say that is if I actually felt that that was the case, like
Yeah.
that, or that I would be okay with him saying, "Well, we really can't change it up. I'm just going to pick up something else instead of your show." That actually would have been better for me than to do the series the way we did the pilot.
It's interesting because I feel like, and maybe I'm just saying this from my own point of view, it is such a struggle to get to that point
Mhm.
that I don't know that I would have the courage to do something like that, you know? Like it's really hard. You really have to, you know, like you said, you have to know yourself well enough to go, this is going to be a fucking nightmare. And I don't, because you've been working towards this for so long
Yeah,
and you're that close. And I feel like there's some people, and maybe I'm one of them, I don't know because I've never gotten there, but there's some people who go, well, I'll figure it out. I can figure out how to make this work. And so to say, no, this is not, and for it, no offense to anybody, for it to turn out to be such the right decision ultimately in terms of how the show came out, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was clear to me that the psychological burden of proceeding that way, even for the amount of time that it took to write and shoot and edit the pilot, was like it really, I could not live that way. I just couldn't do it. Um, so it didn't feel like a choice, actually. It felt like, and part of it too was like just psychologically knowing that I had sort of made this bed for myself through not understanding, not
Right.
having the conversation I needed to have, and just like I fucked up. It's a bad situation.
To be fair, you were on a plane. Did you have an aisle seat or no?
Yeah, I think I had an aisle seat. So,
Nice, nice.
but yeah. Anyway, so I had a meeting with Jeff, and he said, "Yeah, if they make me like a showrunner, executive producer, I would love to come on and help you write this thing and direct every episode." And that was just like the dream.
Yeah.
So it was perfect that it went that way. And then we had all these funny things then where Jeff said, "Okay, well, if it's going to be a series and I'm going to be like in charge of it, I don't want to air that pilot because I didn't like what you guys wrote." So
Wow.
that turned into a whole other crazy thing.
Hmm.
And another one of those times, like there's so many times through this process where just thank God it was Kent Alterman who cares about what the creative people want to do,
Right.
and really like wants to be on the side of the creative people
What do you
because
mean Jeff Blitz wants to play a cop in the pilot?
yeah, that ended up being a running thing. Well, so yeah, we ended up trashing a lot of the pilot, reshooting a lot of the pilot.
Was it the same was he doing the same things in the original pilot or did that change as well? In other words, it was stealing, addiction, and the prom. Were those in the original pilot or like because I'm interested in how you arrived at those things too.
Yeah, right. So what did you say? Stealing?
Addiction and the prom.
Yeah, for sure. Addiction was in the Australian version.
Hmm.
I think stealing must have been too. Um, and I don't know about the prom. But we definitely, our process was that we wrote all the Australian reviews that they did. They made maybe 12 episodes of their show,
Hmm.
2 seasons of six, and put them on index cards. And we're like, if these work for us, let's do them.
Right.
Um, and then, had a million of our own. So it was always a mix of theirs and ours,
Hmm.
as we went. But uh, no, so I'll tell you the way the pilot started, which was the most controversial thing in the world, and I wrote it. So it was, um, oh, and this I think we borrowed from the Australian version. But anyway, it was a little cold open, quick review of Russian roulette, where Forrest is handed a gun and he holds it up to his head and he gives some sort of a review and then pulls the trigger and of course survives and renders his verdict, or is about to render his verdict when blood is splattered on him from the person next to him who's obviously blown his brain out.
Robert De Niro.
Yeah. And then he says, so he's about to like, oh, the exhilaration of surviving this. Oh my goodness. I give it plaque.
Yeah.
I give it 4 stars.
Right. Right.
So out of a possible 5. So the joke being that he was about to give it 5 because of the exhilaration of surviving some near-death experience, and then the fact that a human being next to him has his brains blown out right next to him bumps it down to a 4. And Jeff Blitz was like, I think it's important that this character not be a psychopath. Like, he's going to do a lot of extreme things over the course of this series, but he's going to do them because he has to make the television show. He has to approach it as a decent human being who is doing these extreme things. And if you have him just experience like this, the death of another human being,
Right.
and it only shaves 1 point off of an otherwise perfect experience, I don't like that guy. I'm not rooting for that guy. I don't care about his journey. He's a psychopath.
It's so funny because watching the pilot, and I get where you're coming from with the Russian roulette thing. You're coming from a you're coming from a very Andy Daly place of like the world is fucking dark and it's hilarious, which of course I love. But in the actual pilot, it's quick, but it's a progression of like he steals the malted milk balls, then he steals the groceries from the old lady, and then he's robbing a bank. So it's very much a heightening from like something kind of harmless to his intern getting shot.
Right.
And then it feels like by introducing it that way, you're kind of allowed to go off to the races after that, because that moment between the malted milk balls and the stealing from the old lady is when he realizes kind of the power that this can give him, or the fun that he can have doing these things. And that's the rest of the show, is just going down that dark
Yeah.
path, as opposed to starting there, which is also hilarious, but in a different way, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It was important to feel like he's coming into this as a decent person with one stupid idea, which is
Mm-hmm.
that I have to do
Right.
whatever the audience asks me to do, and do it uh, as fully as possible, whatever. So as long as he has that one stupid idea, but is otherwise a decent human being, will enjoy it,
Right.
was kind of the idea. Now that, see, just to tell you the controversy,
Yeah.
that Russian roulette scene, when they played it for all the Comedy Central people at the, like, whatever, we're picking up this show,
Mm-hmm.
people loved it, got a huge response. And so when Jeff says, we can't do that, I don't want that scene, Kent Alterman was like, fine. But another Comedy Central executive who I think technically worked under Kent, but Kent said, like, if you feel strongly, you go talk to them, came and sat us down, me and Jeff, to like push hard and lobby hard that we include that scene. And one thing I knew about Jeff going in is that he was a high school debate team champion.
Of course.
And it's like, man, you want a high school debate team champion on your side, because
No way to win.
just,
No way to
there's
win.
no way to win. There's
Yeah.
no way to win. So that,
Sorry, Executive Vice President Dan Blithers. Get back to your office and suck on some coffee.
that's what happened.
Uh
Yeah.
yeah, and I think ultimately it was the right decision, you know?
Yeah, I think so.
It I just really was, I didn't know about the Russian roulette thing, but watching it I was like, this is such a good, because you always look at a pilot in terms of where does it start and where does it go and how does it keep going, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a good starting point and a way to go, oh, this could go forever and go. I mean, they could end up doing in the series finale, they could end up doing Russian roulette and he gets blood on him, you know?
Yeah, right. That's true. It could have, that's true. We probably could have thrown a bone to that executive and put that in the final episode.
Yeah, we can you get Dan Blithers up here, because we want to tell him that we did the Russian roulette thing finally. Oh no, he got fired 2 years ago when you guys shot him down.
He was so
Destroyed his
thoroughly
career.
neutered.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. It's always interesting to hear how these things get made. And of course, like I said, I feel like it's even the shows that I think of as like the greatest shows of all time, like The Wire or Deadwood or even The Sopranos. I don't look at them as perfect from start to finish. So it's
Mm-hmm.
cool to see a show like that. Um, okay, here's the next thing I want to talk about because you and I had an experience pitching a show together,
Mm-hmm.
and that is interesting to me just in terms of, I guess, how it came about and what that experience was like, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the show was called The Great American Cabinet of Curiosities,
Yes.
and it was, basically, I went in and pitched something to a person who was working as a development executive at UCB at that time
Oh yeah.
and said, I have this. And it was a thing that I had in my house and a long story about it, which was a photograph of an autograph photo of OJ Simpson from when,
Right.
from, and she was like, well, I think that's great. Do you want to host the show or what do you want to do? And it was the first time I think that I was ever like, I think it would be better if somebody else did this. Like immediately I was like, Andy would be so great as the host. And then you came in and you had this whole, as you always do with your characters, this whole crazy history behind this guy and what he was about.
Mhm.
Um, and I guess here's my first question is like, is that always the place you start with these characters? Is let me develop this idea, or is it like here's a funny idea? What kind of person would be involved with this? I'm just curious to know where it comes from, you know?
I guess I feel like I have a general feeling like I can't start having fun until something makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, um, and I think of it as like a sort of a logic brain, but it's been pointed out to me that it's like this is my own logic. It's not necessarily like universal logic. You
Right.
know what I mean? But like, so when you talked about these cabinets of curiosity as something that were like um what's the word? Proto museums
Right.
or
They were
whatever.
like museums back in the 1600s or whatever,
Privately owned
but in
museums
somebody's
in
house or
private
in somebody's
homes.
castle. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, that the idea of this show where people are going to bring their weird shit that they just have on a shelf in their home and tell us why they've kept it all this time
Mm-hmm.
would be inspired by the notion of these old private museums. Uh, yes, I thought of like a royal, somebody with some kind of royal blood lineage who is very connected to this this tradition, and that helps us understand why he's presenting this. You
Right.
know what I mean? Why him apart from anybody else? And then we came up with what I think was like the central dynamic of the show, which is between the host and his butler slash sidekick, and the idea too, which I loved, which is that like so many titled aristocracy, he has no money, and he's and he really is not paying this butler anything.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that as well, and I feel like, I mean, whatever, you can dissect these things forever,
Mm-hmm.
but to me, that was the aspect of it that I feel like ultimately could have been developed more and become
Mm.
more part of whatever the TV show that could have come out of that would have been. In
Yeah.
other words, we had the characters and we had the premise, which was people coming in to tell their story. But that idea to me is the world of the show. Like, what is this world? And if I was to go back and do it again, which I most likely, who knows if they may invent time travel, but most likely I won't have the chance to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably try to focus a little more on that in
Uh-huh.
in the way we approached it,
Yeah.
not that it wasn't. I mean, I had pitched stuff before, but never in a situation like that where I was with people and with lots of other people, and and it was really kind of a fascinating thing to me.
Yes, it was an interesting experience because I remember like the place that we ultimately pitched it to where they were like, yeah, let's do it. They did this weird thing where they said, here are some changes we need you to make before we make an offer for you to do this show.
Right.
And they, which is unusual, I
Hmm.
think. Like, and it was so like, but in a way, it's kind of like what I was talking about before. Like, I mean, if you're absolutely positive this show is not going to be worth watching unless you do this, this, and this. And if you say no, thank you, let's go our separate ways. Like if you have that degree of certainty, I guess say it. But
Well,
I thought that
they
they,
had a very specific slate of shows over there that were
oh, uh-huh,
you know, all had a similar ethos, I think, to what they were trying to get us to do, where it was like
uh-huh,
very chopped up and very quick,
yeah.
and of course, Larry Blithers was finally working over there, and he was getting revenge on you for getting him getting him fired from Comedy Central.
Yeah. You know where we
Uh,
could do it? We could do it at Dropout.
yeah,
Couldn't we?
it would be a
There you
great
go.
show for that network. Absolutely.
All right, let's
Um,
bring it to Dropout.
But it was always so fun to me in those meetings because I would tell the whole story of the O.J. Simpson picture. And then I had the actual picture with me and I would pull it out and that would blow everybody's minds. And then you would start doing the character, which was so funny. And that was like such a fun moment to be able to just sit back and watch.
Yeah, it was basically if people know me, some of my podcast stuff. It was my character of August Lint essentially, but we changed his name, the same voice is all, and which is like a sort of an unspecific European accent. So he's just like sort of pan-European aristocracy, uh,
And
penniless.
he was like a laird or something, which was such a funny specific to me.
It was fun to look up like various different royal designations, viscounts and lairds and vice lairds. Like, oh,
Right.
fantastic.
Those are the kind of people that would have a cabinet of curiosities.
Yes.
Um,
And he had lost a title in a card game or something too, so he
right.
was the former vice laird of whatever.
Yes, yes. There were
Yes. Yes.
so many levels to all his
All the
stuff.
designations. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I remember in good standing of the Order of the Lily. It's like
Right.
if you
Um,
look up like Prince Charles and all, or what I guess now it would be Prince William, all of the various designations that are attached to him, it's a long, ridiculous
right.
sounding list.
Right. Well, let's talk about your the Andy Daly podcast pilot project because that's
Hmm.
another. I mean, you're talking about August Lint, and that was part of that, I believe, right? Wasn't that from
Yes.
the pilot podcast, whatever it's called, ADPPP? Um,
Uh-huh.
so, can you just tell me a little about how that came about? Like, that's such a specific idea and
Yeah.
so plays into your strengths. It just really, it's great, obviously. So tell us about that.
Well, that
Or
the
tell
the
me, and we'll
idea,
see if anybody listens to
yes,
the show.
right. The idea of a TV show where every episode is a pilot, a failed pilot for a different TV show is something I had a long time ago, like in the 90s when Andy Secunda and I, as the two Andys, were pitching ideas around. That was an idea that like it wouldn't go anywhere as a TV idea because you can't amortize anything. In other words,
Right,
like every episode is completely different. So you can't just like build a set and use it across 26 episodes. You have
right,
to
right.
reinvent the wheel for every episode. That was like the first thing you heard every time we mentioned it
And the
anywhere.
audience is not going to be like, oh, I can't wait to hear what dumb thing Joey says next because
Yeah.
he's only in the pilot and then you're on to the next one.
Yeah, exactly. But now documentary now, I don't know how they overcame all those objections when they did that, but that's essentially like the kind of thing
Right.
I was thinking about. Somehow they got over that. But so anyway, that idea was just kind of in the file cabinet. And then from 2009 through 2014, I guess, I was occasionally appearing on Comedy Bang Bang doing characters that I had put on my album from 2008, and then some new characters that I had created along the way. And it was like every time Scott contacted me to say, will you come and do Comedy Bang Bang? I tried to do somebody new just for fun. And uh, through that process, ended up with this stable of characters that seemed to me were popular, people really liked. And I guess, I don't know who proposed the idea that I should do a podcast, but I thought, oh, well, I have all these discrete characters. It doesn't make sense to have one of these characters host one podcast. Like, why don't I do uh, each episode is the pilot for a different and you can do it in audio format. There's no budget. You know what I mean? It's easy. So that's how that came about. And I really kind of just did it. I basically did it for free. There wasn't money in podcasting at that moment in 2014.
Is there now? I'd like to know about that.
Well, I don't know if there is, but the funny thing is that when I came back and did it for a second season 4 years later, there was money in it.
Oh,
like,
really?
Wow. Yeah, there was money because
for a while.
Yeah, Earwolf had launched Stitcher, I guess, which was a subscription service. And maybe they had already sold the company to Scripps or something like. But there was this moment where like you could get paid to make a show for Earwolf Stitcher, and so even though I did not have that opportunity in 2014, I did in 2018. But the main reason I did it in 2014 was as like a promotional tool for Review, which was premiering that year. So it was just sort of to try and dovetail into that in a way. Right. But it ended up being so much fun.
And, it really was. Yeah. I really.
And you were in the pilot of the pilot. Yes.
Which one was that?
Chip Gardner, Hail Satan.
Oh, that was the pilot?
That was the pilot, yes. It didn't end up being the first one that aired, but it was the first one I made in a way to say, like, can we make more of these? And they said, yes, please. And I always laugh I think about it all the time, that my character Chip asked your character Tip, what have you been up to, Tip? And you said, I've been touring the county on my motor trike.
What I remember about that is that we were playing at a high energy level for the entire time.
Yeah.
And I think I just got exhausted at some point. And there was a thing, I think it was when we were doing whatever, like Tips, Chips, and Chips, Tips, and then Tips, Tips, and Chips, Chips, and I just got lost in it, and I started just repeating back to you things that you had already said, like you were like, well, those are my tips, and then what are your chips? And I just was saying this, and you were like, I just said that, like, and I was like, oh God, what's happening right now? I just basically imploded on the show. But it was those were all so fun, and the live one was just a
yes,
delight, you know.
Where you played Seamus McMahon. Oh, great fun.
But I got to stand there for 45 minutes and just watch the show from the back of the room, which was also really fun, you know. Well, speaking of all of that, because I feel like there's an element in some of those, a little bit in a lot of the stuff, but how much pre-writing of stuff goes on? Because a lot of it is very, very improvised, but it feels like you always have kind of a loose premise, and sometimes like the Chips, Tips, and Tips, Chips thing, we kind of had some ideas before we started of some of the stuff we were gonna talk about.
Yeah. I think in those pilot episodes, those Andy Daly podcast pilot project episodes, it really was a mix of written stuff. So like Dalton Wilcox has a written story that he's going to present to us, and a written poem and stuff like that. And just freewheeling, improvising. These days, I'm leaning much more toward just improvising because I'm doing one a week indefinitely.
Right.
But that was a limited run. of 8 episodes, and I was pretty ambitious with them because I think almost everyone had a musical guest too. Not everyone, but a lot of them had like music by the Journeymen and whatever, and
Uh,
so and they were all like 90 minutes. Um, and yes, there was a fair amount of writing, um, but trying for that perfect blend of like, I know this is going to work because it's written and it's funny, and then we're going to improvise for like 30 minutes where my character is interviewing your character, and maybe that will end up being cut down
right.
in the edit, or maybe it'll all be gold, but like I'm not risking everything. Some stuff is written.
You're not risking everything on just the improv stuff,
Yeah.
which is always a huge risk, as evidenced by our show 2 nights ago. Show number 999.
Mm,
Uh, Here's a question for you, and this is going to sound accusatory because it
yes.
is.
Mm,
Why do you, why are you not comfortable doing stand up, really?
mm.
Or
Yes,
I'm
good
just, maybe I'm
question.
just assuming, but I feel like you could do very well as a stand up, but you have chosen to mostly, I think, avoid that or do character versions of stand up.
Yeah, I have tried quite a few times to do stand up, and it has never gone well. And I can't in my mind fully give up on it either because it does seem like I think I can write jokes.
Yeah.
I think, I think I can be
I've
myself on
seen it.
stage.
I've seen it happen.
But I can't do it, and maybe it's maybe I overthink it. But I think part of it is that and tell me if you think I'm wrong about this, but I think a stand up takes a some elements of their personality as a, let's call it, persona, and then writes from the perspective of that persona and performs as that persona on stage.
I think that's
Um,
accurate. Yeah.
okay. So, number one, I don't think that's so different from going up in character. and
Fair enough.
and number two, I have never been able to figure out like what aspects of the actual me uh should my act be sort of winnowed down to and come out of. Um and maybe I'm thinking about it wrong. But I think like, Mark Maron is, I think he's probably a fully rounded human being, but he writes from the perspective of sort of an angry, uh, whatever, whatever you would call that perspective,
Finding your voice.
finding your voice. And so, but yeah, that's one way of putting it. But I do think of it as like cordoning off certain aspects of yourself that are not going to be reflected in the writing or the performing, and just saying like that's not me on stage, and choosing other aspects of yourself to really push forward. And I cannot wrap my brain around that process.
Well, it's interesting because I think one of the difficulties that I have had doing stand up, aside from not being able to write jokes and not being funny, I also
Not true.
oh, you're too kind. We'll have you we'll have you back. Is doing that exact thing too much, cordoning off like this is a separate thing. Like just as an example, and I'm not saying this would work, but when I was working in a bunch of animated shows, I was doing lots of like characters and voices and all kinds of stuff like that. And when I was doing stand up at the same time, none of that was in my stand up. And it was a
Hmm.
completely separate muscle, separate thing. And I am now, for whatever reason, I'm trying to get back into stand up
Hmm.
for the third time in my career. And one of the decisions I've made is to try to incorporate more things as opposed to being like just this one thing. So I don't know what I'm really saying, except, is there a way that you could incorporate all the characters along with the sort of straight man persona and find a way to explore all that stuff on stage. I'm giving you advice
Yes.
about your stand-up career, basically.
No, well, no, but it's interesting because I've thought about that, and maybe this is a model for you too, but like I have since high school been a huge fan of George Carlin's Class Clown album and Occupation Fool, which particularly Class Clown is one where he seems to the listener just to be telling you stories.
Mm-hmm.
And along the way, he inhabits certain characters who are
Right.
in his stories. And those characters do seem to lean into voices that he can really do well.
Right.
Um, and when I listen to that, I think, well, that's something I could do. Surely I could just tell stories
Mm-hmm.
and enact the characters, but he's not actually just telling stories.
Right.
Like
Well,
every
that's the trick
word.
of doing
Yeah.
storytelling as a
Yeah,
stand-up
yeah.
is you still have to do the stand-up part. You can't just tell the story. So it's got to have the same rhythm, the same jokes and everything,
Exactly.
but it's just a story thing, you know?
That's the incredible thing about that album to me is like you just get lost in the narrative and you can forget that no, I'm hearing setups and punchlines. They
Right.
just happen to be very expertly woven into an overall narrative that pretty much carries you through the whole album. Uh, which is, it's deceptively what's how do you say that? It's deceptively it is difficult, but it looks easy. So it's deceptively difficult.
It's
Uh,
deceptively easy.
It's deceptively easy.
It's easily difficult.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, Maria Bamford is another model for somebody who
yeah,
puts
oh my
voices into
God.
her
Yeah.
stand up.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Incredible. I still remember the first time I went to see Sloven and Allen record a special for Comedy Central. I mean, this was probably in the late 90s, and the other half of the recording was Maria Bamford, and I'd never
Mm.
seen her before, and it was just astonishing to watch. Um,
Yeah.
all right, here's a question for you, and I only have a couple more, so you can do whatever you need to do. But actually, I have about 20 more. But
Okay.
the I guess my question is like, what are you working on now, and do you feel like you're spoiled for TV stuff by having this opportunity to do the podcast on a regular basis? Like, you get complete creative control on the podcast, and you don't have uh whatever that guy's name was, Steve Blithers, coming in and going, no, you need to put this in there. We need more Dalton Wilcox,
Yeah.
whereas in TV, that's 75% of the people that work on anything are just there to say, no, you got to do this instead, you know? So
Yeah.
anyway, I guess I'm saying a couple different things at the same time, but are you developing anything right now, and is it easy or hard?
Well, yeah, no, it's true. I so love putting out an hour of podcasting every week. That is what I want to do, what I have the bandwidth to do, and that's been amazing. And I haven't like had many conversations with my reps in a while, to the point where my agents called me a few months ago and said, "So you don't have a manager anymore?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And they said, "No, you don't."
Oh God.
I didn't realize. I This is another one of those things. Maybe I'm bad at taking hints, but like someone from my manager's office had called me to say, "Hey man, I'm moving on to a different company. It's been great knowing you and working with you. I wish I could take you with me, whatever." I was like, "Oh, no problem." Not realizing that meant I didn't have I thought the whole company was still representing me. Anyway, the
He was
point of
just
all
moving to the office next door, like it was the same company. But
right. I didn't read between the lines of that conversation apparently.
yeah, that's what
But
you want to do. That's what you want to do when you're a manager, is get out of business with Andy Daly. Don't work with him anymore. That's a smart fucking move.
I don't know, but then in that conversation, my agent was saying to me like, "Hey, the market is a little bit better than it was whenever for pitching ideas. Why don't you come up with some like TV ideas?" And I took the assignment, and I had so much fun coming up with ideas for shows I wanted to do. And I typed them up and sent it to him. And his response was, "I don't have confidence in any of these ideas." I was like, okay, okay, like that, and that's fine. And I actually kind of feel like I might just write them up and maybe um do them as a radio drama on the podcast. I also had this other crazy idea, which is like sounds very defeatist, but somehow warms my heart, is to like take a bunch of the unproduced screen scripts that I have written over the years, and I've been doing that, like writing spec scripts and stuff
You're talking
since
about
2005.
movie scripts?
Movie scripts and TV scripts, mostly spec pilots but a couple of screenplays,
Mm-hmm.
and um, binding them into like a hardcover book, which you can do. There are services that will make like a hardcover book.
It's like a hardcover company.
Yeah, yeah. And calling it like, the unproduced works of Andy Daly, Volume 1, and just putting it on my shelf and feeling like I wrote something, I finished it, I liked it, how it turned out. Nobody wanted to make it, but it exists and it belongs on my bookshelf.
First of all, I like that you call it Volume 1 because that is very optimistic.
Not optimistic that anything. No, it's not. It's pessimistic because I'm unproduced works, Volume 1. Like, people are going to keep not buying my stuff.
It's easily difficult.
Uh-huh.
But I keep hard copy, not they're not bound or anything, but everything
Yeah.
I've ever written is sitting in a file cabinet in my living room for that exact reason. It's like this is a tangible thing that I did, and some of them got produced, but a lot of them didn't. And I'm like,
Yeah.
but it exists and it's a lot of work, and I did it, and here it is,
Yeah, all of my unproduced works are swimming around in hard drives.
Right,
And
right.
yeah, I need to do something because it makes it feel like they don't exist.
Right. And so I have consciously over time, and it's so funny because I'm trying to like declutter my living space. And one of the things was like, oh, I should just clear out this file cabinet full of stuff because who cares? And I couldn't do it, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
no, I know this makes me crazy and a hoarder, but like I want these physical copies of this.
Yeah, it matters you did something. But let me say, because this might be helpful,
Uh-huh.
that when he asked me like come up with ideas, I did not go through the process of like, okay, what on TV right now is popular, what's working, and let me try to make something like that. I just said, what would amuse me to work on and amuse me to see? And so it's not shocking that the response was, I can't sell this, you know, because I wasn't trying to come up really with
Andy, a
something that's
reality show about Russian roulette? Are you crazy?
well, the thing he did say is he was like, and this was before the company retreat season started airing, but he said jury duty has done really well for whoever made that, and that they're making another one. And so I have a feeling we're about to see like a slew of jury duty-esque shows.
I love jury duty, and I thought company retreat was enjoyable.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times because the luck you have in that and getting the right person to be the person and
Yeah.
having been on, I mean, you mentioned Crossballs before. Having been on Crossballs, not, I mean, you were on every episode. I only did like 2 or 3 episodes, but the fucking nerve-wracking moments
Yeah.
where something you say and you're like, oh my God, are they going to figure it out? Are you going to go through that over a long period of time? It feels very hard to pull off.
Yeah, I was able to do it on Crossballs and have fun doing it because my interactions, I'm in character, they're a real person, and our interactions are pretty short and confined to like in between the commercial breaks of this taping.
Hmm.
But to do it like I don't every
Sitting
day for
around.
hours
Yeah.
a day,
Yeah.
pretending to be somebody else and saying things that that are like scripted to be kind of outrageous and say
Right.
them right to somebody's face. And particularly when on Crossbows, we did try to pick people who deserved it,
Right.
to some extent. And for this to just be the nicest person you've ever met,
It's the
it's like,
opposite. Yeah.
I don't think I could do it.
I had to walk out on Crossballs and sit down at the set wearing two fat suits at the same time. And I was just like, this is so obvious. Like this makes no sense. But she never figured it out.
That was one of the strange revelations of that show, how gullible people really are.
Right.
Yeah.
But here's what I wanted to underline what you're saying. Um, Two things, because this one of these things came up before on this show with the great Ed Harrow. It's like you have something, why not just write it up? Like do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody's waiting for like what's the right thing and is this the right and the other thing you're saying that I really like is what is amusing to you? Like what's going to make you laugh? What's going to make you happy? And it sounds like your agent didn't buy into that, but you got to do that and you don't go, fuck, I tried so hard to adapt something that was going to make sense and figure it out, and I didn't Tetris it right, so it's not going to work. You were like, I love these ideas, I might do them as radio dramas, so or whatever you
Yeah.
podcast comedies or whatever the term is, the term of art.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a good thing for everybody to keep in mind is like do what you want to do. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody tries so hard to figure it all out, and there's no way to do that. Okay, two more things.
Mm.
One is, do you do anything? I'm on a journey right now. I am trying to. I'm basically writing a second draft of my life at this point because I think there's changes I can make that will make things better for me ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those is I'm working on physically being in a better place going forward. Do you do anything as far as exercise or working out or anything like that that you would recommend?
Oh, I wish. Right now, where I'm at exercise wise is that every day I wake up and I go, I should go out there and ride that bike.
Do you have a
And
bike?
yes, yes.
Oh, you
I have
do.
a
It would be
stationary
weird if you
bike.
woke up and said that when you didn't have a bike.
There's a stationary bike in our garage. And
Peloton?
yeah, I should
Hmm.
ride it. And every day I come up with some reason that today is not the day. I end up doing it maybe twice a week,
Oh, that's
except
pretty
that there'll
good.
be, except that there will be runs of several weeks where I don't do it at all.
Right, right.
um, but yeah, I mean, isn't the thing that it has to be something that you enjoy, unless you're like really motivated to get in some kind of shape. Uh, for its own sake. The thing that you do for exercise has to be something you enjoy doing. And riding this stationary bike is not that for me.
Right. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think that what helps with that is like trying different stuff and going, what's the thing? It's the same as the writing thing, where it's like, it's going to suck if I have to do something that other people want me to do. But if I can figure out what I want to do, it's going to be way more fun and way more productive ultimately.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what it is. But we do take our dogs on a 30-minute walk every day, so it's not a completely sedentary
They
lifestyle.
say people who have dogs have a longer lifespan expectancy, and
Okay.
because they're out walking every day, and it makes a huge difference.
Yep.
Um, Now, this is a thing I like to ask people, and a lot of people are like, "No, I don't really." But I feel like you're somebody who would have something like this. Um, do you have like a weird showbiz anecdote that you like to share that you feel comfortable talking about that is, something crazy that happened on a show or on a set or something like that? What's the weirdest moment you've ever had in Hollywood?
Oh my God.
You
The
got a ton of them,
weirdest.
don't you?
I know, yeah, I feel like I do have a lot of really weird moments in show business. Certainly, there were a lot on review. Um, okay, I'll tell you one that comes to mind.
Okay.
So I worked on something with Adam Arkin, who is such a great director. He's a
I
really
like
great,
Adam Arkin. Yeah.
yeah, he's great. Um,
Great actor
and
and great director.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And we had a really good time working together. I don't know if this is such an interesting. I'm going to tell you two stories because this was
Okay.
not so interesting. But anyway,
Perfect.
some years later, we're shooting the episode of Review, which is Colt and plastic surgery, and I'm in this ridiculous out. I could not look more crazy. I'm in the total like bodysuit, latex bodysuit that's designed to look like I had muscle implants put in and on the cheap, done poorly. So
Mm-hmm.
they made it like it looks insane. And I'm sprayed this weird spray tan, and I've got these ultra white teeth in because the thing is, Forrest has gone too far on body modification. And I'm sitting in this house at the Disney Ranch where we were shooting, uh, just trying to like cool off. And it's so miserable to wear this thing. It was
Mm-hmm.
such a hard day of shooting outside. And in comes Adam Arkin with a bunch of people because he's scouting the location for an upcoming shoot. And
Oh,
he
hey,
just,
man. Yeah.
yeah, I said, "Oh, hey, Adam," because I really liked working with him and was excited to see him. I was like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" He's like, and he just looked at me. I was like, "Oh, I'm Andy Daly. I'm in this," and he goes, "Oh, okay," and then he tried to have like a normal conversation with me, but it's ridiculous. But my other story, I don't know if this is a weird story, but I was such a Martin Short super fan growing up, uh, and I got to do a sketch with him on Mad TV, and um, I just remember before we went out to do the sketch, we're waiting behind these curtains, and they're going to bring us out to like thrill the audience. We're getting ready to go out, and he just turned to me. And by the way, he was dressed as Jiminy Glick, so it's a similar story.
He's got a
He's in
lot
the
of stuff on
yeah,
him.
he's in the full Jiminy Glick outfit, and he just turned to me, just me, and he said, "What if this is a disaster?" Which is just perfectly in my sense of humor.
Yeah.
Like just to have a private moment with Martin Short saying, like gleefully saying, "Imagine if this goes horribly
Yeah.
and we're humiliated."
Those are always fun moments where you're just like right about to go out into a performance and you have like a
Yeah.
little exchange like that. That's especially if it's Martin Short.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming it was
It's
not a disaster.
it was fine. Well, it was funny because I was playing Bill Maher in a politically incorrect parody when that show was on.
Uh-huh.
And that was actually a rather thankless job for me. It was something Phil Lamar had done before I got there. And then Phil left and I came in and they were like, "Hey, can you do a Bill Maher impression?" I said, "No." And they said, "Well, can you work on one? Because we need to
That's
do these
yeah.
sketches, which are impression receptacles for like people's really good impressions."
We had this
And
other
you're,
guy who was great at this. Can you try
yeah.
filling in for him?
Yeah. And it was not fun. And I was really kind of serving up straight lines. And they put a false nose on me that didn't look like my nose, but did not look like Bill Maher's nose.
Ugh.
And it was not the way that I really wanted to work with Martin Short. But the sketch was not a disaster.
I hope you told him that afterwards. Hey,
Yeah.
motherfucker. That went pretty well. That's what you get. Andy Daly, thank you so much for being here. Do you have anything that you want to plug? Anything you feel like I didn't ask you that you wanted to talk about? We are going to have you back for another episode at some point because I feel like I have so many
Oh,
more things to ask you.
I went on a long time about review, I must confess.
No, no, no. I love that. I mean,
Okay, good.
that was really the like I said, I watched it this morning and I was like, God,
Mm.
there's so much here to get into.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, well, I'd love to come back and answer
and
more
I also
questions.
think it's interesting, like I said, to hear those background stories because there is always a backstory to every like how did this fucking thing end up on the air versus that fucking thing which was really good but didn't make
Yeah.
it and there's an alternate reality where Larry Blithers comes in and goes, "You got to put the Russian roulette thing back in." And Jeff Blitz goes, "Fine, I give up. I know I was a high school debate champion, but it's like the Lincoln Douglas thing where eventually Stephen Douglas had to say, or whatever the Douglas, Frederick Douglas, who was the Douglas guy?
Stephen. Yeah,
Okay.
Stephen, I think.
Had to say like, okay, I give up. And so I give up. And then you do put the Russian roulette thing in and the pilot doesn't go
Hmm.
because there's always so many little things like that have to be navigated. So anyway, I'm
Yes.
saying like, I thought that was really, really interesting. Um,
Cool. Good. Yeah.
Do you have a social media account or anything like that to
Well,
let
people should
know?
just go to patreon.com/Andy Daly and sign up. Uh, but I'm not really social mediaizing very much. Maybe on Instagram where I'm TV's Andy Daly sometimes, but not really.
Folks, this has been another episode of Punching Up with Sean Conroy. This one was with Andy Daly. And thank you for being here, Andy. We will
Thank you. I enjoyed that.
I did too. That was really fun.